The Middle Ages was not an age of comfort or certainty. It was a world where survival depended on the land, faith ruled every thought, and danger was never far away. For nearly 1,000 years, millions of people lived under conditions that today are almost impossible to imagine. This was a time without electricity, without modern medicine, and without security. Life was fragile. Death was common. And every sunrise was a reminder that survival was never guaranteed. The peasant majority, life at the bottom. More than 90% of medieval people were peasants. They lived in villages made of wood, mud, and straw. Their homes were small, dark, and crowded. Animals often shared the same space as humans, especially during winter. Peasants did not own the land they worked. They served a lord, paying rent through crops, labor, or military service. From childhood to old age, life was work. Men plowed fields and harvested crops. Women baked bread, fetched water, cared for children, and worked the land as well. Children labored from a young age. There was no childhood as we know it today. Food was simple and repetitive. Bread, soup, and vegetables formed the daily diet. Meat was rare. Hunger was common. A single failed harvest could bring famine, disease, and death. Nature as master. Nature ruled medieval life. There were no forecasts, no machines, and no protection from disaster. Floods destroyed crops. Droughts brought starvation. Cold winters killed the weak. People believed these disasters were punishments from God. Fear of divine anger shaped how people lived, prayed, and obeyed. To survive meant to respect nature and fear it. Feudal lords and castles. Above the peasants stood the nobility. Lords controlled land, armies, and justice. Their power was absolute within their territory. Castles were built for defense, not comfort. Thick stone walls, narrow windows, and high towers protected nobles from attack. Life inside was safer, but still harsh. Cold rooms, smoke-filled halls, and poor hygiene were common. Feasts symbolized power, but even nobles lived with constant threat of war, rebellion, or assassination. Knights and warfare knights were trained from boyhood to fight. Their lives revolved around weapons, horses, and loyalty to their lord. The ideal of chivalry promoted honor and bravery, but real warfare was brutal. Battles were chaotic and merciless. Villages were burned. Prisoners were executed or ransomed. Civilians suffered the most. War was not an event. It was a way of life. The power of the church. The church was the most powerful force in medieval society. It controlled education, law, and morality. Kings ruled by God's permission, and priests spoke in His name. People feared hell more than death. Every illness, disaster, or misfortune was seen as a test or punishment. Churches dominated villages, and bells marked the rhythm of daily life. Monasteries preserved knowledge, copying ancient texts by hand. Without them, much of history would have been lost. Faith offered hope, but also fear and control. Disease, medicine, and death. Medical knowledge was extremely limited. Doctors believed illness was caused by bad air, imbalance of fluids, or sin. Treatments often made things worse. Plagues spread quickly through dirty streets and crowded homes. The Black Death killed nearly 1/3 of Europe's population. Entire villages disappeared. Death was visible everywhere. Bodies lay in streets. Families vanished overnight. Life expectancy was low and grief was constant. Women, marriage and family women lived under strict social rules. Marriage was often arranged. Despite this, women were essential. They worked, managed households, and in some cases ruled kingdoms or led religious communities. Family bonds were strong. Survival depended on unity. Change and the end of the Middle Ages. Slowly, the world began to change. Trade expanded. Cities grew. New ideas emerged. Contact with other cultures brought knowledge and innovation. The Renaissance began to rise from the ashes of medieval life. Science, art, and human thought slowly replaced fear and superstition. But the Middle Ages left a deep legacy. Life in the Middle Ages was not romantic. It was hard, cruel, and uncertain. But it was also a time of resilience, belief, and endurance. People lived with little, feared much, and survived against overwhelming odds. This was life in the Middle Ages, a world shaped by struggle, a world ruled by faith, a world that forged history.